Joined now here on 365 Sports by our good friend Josh Neighbors, host of the Big 12 Watch, Crystal Ball College Football Channel, another excellent channel that we feed with programming, including Josh's show and Garrett and Jack's show. College Chaos podcast is on that one as well. Josh, let's before we get into transfer portal and some of the guys out there and which teams you think are kind of intriguing in the Big 12, let's talk about Texas's last night as a Big 12 football team and the championship game that's coming up. But first, your thoughts on the end of the Texas era as a Big 12 football team.
Yeah, as for the game itself, it was a lot of fun. And obviously Washington, I mean, just they're so well coached. It's unbelievable. And Penix was awesome. And those receivers, the joke was out there on Twitter, like, is their receiving core better than the Chiefs? I mean, there's an argument to be made. It actually is. I think that's actually something you could argue. But they were fantastic. And look, we knew, we didn't talk about it, I think we had as a group, if Washington or if Texas had their druthers, Washington was probably the last team they wanted to play, just because what Washington does well is what Texas does not do well, right? They don't cover very well. And I thought there were some times, guys, where the coverage was good and some throws just got put on, being basically right in the money. We had a tip touchdown too. So yeah, I mean, what a fun game. And I also give Texas credit for hanging in there, just not going away. And honestly, like they've been the matador for most of the season. They usually have not been chasing. They were pretty good on the chase, right? They were not the better team in the first half. For parts of the second half, they were better. Washington they tightened up late, and Texas took advantage. If Quinn Ewers places that final throw in the right spot, we're having a different conversation here, which is crazy.
Josh, a lot of big announcements as far as the transfer portal and extra years of eligibility and all those types of things. And seventh year coming to Alan Bowman. He's returning to Stillwater, and they've got Ollie Gordon back. They've got various others on offense and defense that have proclaimed that they'll be coming back. It seems like the Cowboys are set up for a nice follow-up to making the Big 12 championship game this past season. But what are your thoughts on Bowman being back in the fold? And also, where are you when it comes to the glut of, seventh-year players that we now have in college football? Where do you kind of stand on the older player leanings that we now have in the sport?
Yeah, so I'm cool with the older part, I guess, but guys, so I just celebrated 4 years of being graduated from college. December of 2019 was when I graduated.
Congrats.
Alan Bowman was in college when I was a junior. Yeah. This guy was in college in 2018. I mean, that is absolutely crazy. I know he had an injury and whatnot, but at some point, get a job, man. Seriously, just go and get a job. Well, but here's the thing. If they're going to let you keep playing football, go ahead and keep playing football. So, I mean, that's what you should do. I think this one's super interesting. I'm kind of split down the middle on this one because to me, I'm not an Alan Bowman guy. I did not find his performance, the upside just is not there, right? He is a guy that is pretty good at not getting sacked, but it's not like he takes good care of the football. He can sling it around, but he's not an efficient thrower. I think it was 60% on the year. Threw 14 interceptions this year too. Was only sacked 7 times though. But look, when he came in as a starter, things went pretty well. He's not a guy that normally can bring you back when you're down. They were down times, they did come back, but Oklahoma State this year, they were a good team, but if they got kind of, if you started putting on a little bit, they were bad at responding. BYU game was standing because BYU's not that good of a team. So UCF, which was decent, hammered them. They couldn't respond. Oklahoma State is bedlam, so it's kind of almost its own thing. And then Texas, I mean, that was not a close game either. So I think this probably speaks to the options that were there at quarterback available to them on the, in the building, in the portal, and also in recruiting. So it looked like they won a bunch of games with him. So, they did win, but I mean, their ceiling is not high. He's 24. So how much better is Alan Bowman going to get is kind of my point here. We kind of know what he is at this point.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, and I wouldn't be shocked to see Oklahoma State, Josh, go after someone in the that just played a redshirt freshman year that might have been a high-star recruit somewhere else that's back in the portal to develop them behind Alan Bowman? Because
those guys cost, and we know the NIL side of things at Oklahoma State's, kind of different, I guess.
Yeah, but because also Alan Bowman has, until last year, not exactly been the picture of health.
Yeah, I mean, right, exactly. He's had injuries. He sat behind guys, and then the injuries are why he's actually still playing at this point in time. Right, they need a backup plan, and to me, it's like, well, it's hard to find guys. Well, if Kansas can have a good backup plan, Oklahoma State can have a good backup plan. I don't know if Garrett Rangel. I haven't seen anything about Garrett Rangel in the portal. Obviously, we know Mike Gundy's son, Gunner, has entered the portal, which is is interesting.
And he actually just announced he's committed to Ohio. That just came down at the last. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, this is the management of the quarterback situation in Stillwater has been like just so bad the last year, because and it's good at one point when you pick Bowman, but I mean the triangle offense that we ran, the three separate quarterbacks, was pretty awful for the first month. And that happened because what happened? Well, you chased off Spencer Sanders, who obviously that didn't work out for him, but in the beginning of the year, it didn't work out for Oklahoma State either. And I would say long-term, it didn't work out. Like that team was good. They coached him up well late, but if he's a quarterback, we're having a different conversation about the 2023 Cowboys. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Josh, what do you think about Gerry Bohanan, former Baylor quarterback, former USF quarterback? He's been dealing with injuries, but now headed to Provo to join BYU. Any thoughts on Gerry Bohanan and the Cougs?
It's my job to have thoughts. I have very few about this. Okay. I mean, Gerry is he is a quarterback, is what I will say. And like that's kind of the deal with him. And look, he's actually had more success than Blake Shapen did, right? And I think Blake Shapen's a better quarterback than Gerry is, but to Gary's credit, like Gerry kind of knew what his role was and played it very, very well. So BYU was obviously a situation where they needed something at quarterback. I wouldn't call him an upgrade, but this guy's been around. And once again, like Alan Bowman's good, is proof. Hey, sometimes just having some experience matters. And it's a guy you can run with too, and you feel okay running with. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a multi-quarterback attack for the Cougs coming up next year.
Will Howard is now the quarterback at Ohio State. Josh, is he an upgrade over Kyle McCord? And if so, how much?
Yeah, so this is a great talking point right now. People are like, "Oh, it's the same thing over again." I think that's being said because he's a white guy with like a decent arm. Mm-hmm. I honestly believe that. Like, I really believe it's like, well, upgrade all. I've watched Will Howard the last 2 years, his entire career. I thought he started out and was not very good. I was like, this is not going to work. And then, as everybody said, he got older, he got more mature, he figured it out. And also, I think the problem that I'm having is people are not looking at what happened last year or in the 2022 season and the 2023 season. They had options on offense. And Will Howard's best quality was the fact that he could get the ball to every part of the field because he has an NFL arm, right? They could find guys in the flat. They could find guys outside the numbers, outside the hashes, up the middle, everywhere. And they also had a really good complement of players. They had tight ends and H-backs and wide receivers and running backs who could all catch the ball. Well, this year, their receiving core was bad. That was not a good receiving core. You weren't worried about K-State wide receivers getting a ton of separation. Their best receiver was Phil Brooks was, honestly more of he is a special teams guy. Like that's what he's mostly known for. And so to me, what I thought all year was Will Howard was being asked to put balls in pretty tight windows. I think K-State's offense is going to work better with Avery Johnson because it should be a rushing attack first. And that's kind of what creates space, elsewhere. It's like a good basketball player. It's like, hey, Dwayne Wade, like we know he's going to drive. Somebody's going to have to help. And the help is what's going to start creating the movement. Pick your favorite driving basketball player. But that's kind of what I think K-State's offense is designed to be. And this year, a whole lot was on Will Howard to make tough throws, and he didn't always make them. But he tried to, and I think the receivers didn't help him out. So you give him Ohio State's weapons, I'm pretty confident they're going to be okay. Also, he is a much more mobile quarterback than Kyle McCord. Like, you don't always have to run him, but he is a good, strong runner. He can finish runs. He is athletic. So to me, I'm not surprised. Like, the NFL was there for him. And also too, I was at the Cotton Bowl, boys. That was, Ryan Day, his performance was horrific, number one. But those two quarterbacks just couldn't do anything for him. And I saw Bud Elliott say on Twitter, Will Howard made himself a lot of money. Yeah, he did. He made himself a lot of money because Will Howard is good. He's actually a championship level quarterback. We've seen him win one. You give him those kinds of weapons, I think it could be a lot better than what Kyle McCord was. I don't feel like it was that close, to be honest. Like, I think the conversation about it being close is odd and strange to me.
Josh, when it comes to the Big 12 bowl season, what kind of stood out to you? What results, or I guess even just the coolness of mayo being dumped on people's heads, or Pop-Tarts, or whatever? What were your takeaways from it?
So I think number one thing was, for me, was the 3 9-win teams, because it was all different. Kansas, with they're building a program right now, and depth killed them last year, and to have them this year win 9 games off the strength of their backup quarterback, and also have some really close losses with their third string quarterback. Guys, if I told you all 5-6 years ago, Kansas with a backup, you say 30-point loss, right? That's what we always say. That's not the case. And then I tell you Kansas with a third string, you're like, they have a third string, question mark. And that was, they were close with Tech in that game. They were close with K-State with their third string. They won 9 games, and they had the preseason offensive player in the year in the conference go down and only play 3 games. That's how good that was. For K-State, Bill Snyder in his best days was averaging 9, 10 wins, back-to-back 9-win seasons. That's really good. And I think they had 8 before that. So they went 8, 10, 9. They're averaging 9 wins per year over the last 3 years. That's what a winning program looks like. It was important for them with Avery Johnson to get that done. And then West Virginia, Neil Brown had to do something drastic, and I would argue 9 wins, pretty drastic, right, for him to go like that, for him to assume play calling, for them to be a good running team that takes those deep shots. I thought it all all 3 of those teams got 9 wins, and it all meant something different. So that was my favorite. And then, guys, the number one thing, Noah Fifita in the Alamo Bowl. And so I watched him all year. He's good. That dude is like, he's short, but besides that, you'd have to really stress to find something bad about him, because he can rip it. And they made the Mahomes pocket awareness comparison in the game. Oh, everybody's compared to Patrick Mahomes. No, like the ability to understand when I have to move, how to create angles is the big thing. How do I create angles because I'm short to make the throws? He could rip it, guys, and he is going to be arguably preseason QB1 in the Big 12 next year.
Yeah, he's got a receiver that'll be up there for conversation about the best receiver in the Big 12 too. And so they're coming in pretty hot. I think nobody's changed the narrative or maybe drummed up more of excitement as far as making the move next year. Colorado was the big, like, hey, it's Dion and all that, and Utah's had their proven. But, Arizona's now a team whose opinion from just when they were first announced to be joining the Big 12, I think has changed drastically, clearly more so than any other team. They're going to be somebody to contend with next year.
Yeah, and their defense was what was actually pretty good for them. Like, so that they had to make the quarterback change from DeLora to Fifita. But during kind of that period where they were playing a bunch of good teams, it was the defense for them that really stood out and was actually helping keep them competitive. And then Fifita kind of just went off from there. And they ripped off a bunch of wins in a row with him as the quarterback. And so you're like, this Jed Fish thing is really working out at Arizona. And they've got athletes all over the field. They rallied, they went down and, they were up and they were back down and they were back up again. But like this, they've got a quarterback, they've got a coach, they've got skill players, and it seems like they've got a pretty decent defense, which I think is going to define much of the Big 12 next year. Is like, all right, who's going to be able to stop people? Who's going to actually have a defense that can stand up? I think that's why Arizona and Utah should be maybe 1 and 2 next year coming into the league.
Yeah, I think if you look at quarterbacks coming to the league next year, it's Fifita, Cam Rising coming back, and we'll see how healthy he is. But he's a gamer and a winner. We know that for sure. And then Shedeur Sanders coming in is really interesting, but we know he wasn't the issue at Colorado. It's everything that's got to be around Shedeur Sanders. And then at Arizona State, it's Jaden Rashada, who was the number one quarterback last year. So the 4 teams coming in, at least quarterback questions, really pretty much have them solved.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterbacks at the 4 incoming teams either have, like Fifita took over unquestioned leader. Cam Rising is my age, at this point. So, and he's good. Shedeur is good. We know he's a good player. He's got his shortcomings, but yeah, I mean, it's a whole lot of, all right, like, what happens if people block for Shedeur is like kind of the next big question, right? He's going to take too many risks. Great. But nobody blocked for him. So he had to do it all anyway. Right. So, and then Rashada, I mean, from a pedigree standpoint, who is as good as that guy? And also the one thing about that team, like they never quit. They were playing guys like me out there. It seemed like late in the season that we're getting opportunities, and they never quit. And they rotated 8 quarterbacks, it felt like. But then you look at the actual returning Big 12 teams. Who's the best returning Big 12 quarterback from the Big 12 teams? I mean, Jalen Daniels is the answer, but also we can't just assume he's going to play because that's not been the reality for them the last 2 seasons. And then Avery Johnson's high talent, but we haven't seen him that much. Garrett Green is inefficient, but it looks like he's, so there's so many questions, but it's funny. There's not many questions with the new team's QBs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Josh, your thoughts on Monday night, Michigan and Washington. Who you got?
Probably Michigan, sadly. The Harbaugh interview bit is horrific. It's so bad. Where it's like, what color is the sky? And he's like, oh, how about our mascot? How nice is the mascot? Like, he just refuses to answer any question, which is really frustrating. His dad, I mean, I thought his dad, they put, Jim in an aging machine and pulled out, Jim and Jack Harbaugh. I did not realize he looked just like him. That was crazy.
They have the same glasses. Them, though. They wore the same glasses.
The hat too. They had the M hat. Everybody said this, so I wonder what you all think. Everybody was like, yeah, Michigan was a better team against Alabama. I did not. That's not what I thought when watching the game. So I'm in the minority on this. That is not how I felt, because Michigan had to pull their tails out of the fire there, and they had not been doing that offensively all year or all game. So, Michigan being put in a spot where their offense had to do that, I don't know how you say they dominated a game in which their offense was asked to do something they haven't even done all year. That was kind of my thought on it.
Well,
I'm sure how you guys were.
Here's how I felt about the game, in that if your argument was for Alabama to be the, one of the 4 best, and you're basing it on a quarterback, then no. Although I do like Jalen Milroe, and I think his ceiling is really, really high, but he's inconsistent. And for Michigan, I do think that what Harbaugh has coached well enough is they are efficient. I mean, they are absolutely just
ruthless.
Ruthlessly efficient. And Alabama, for the first time ever, is not. And that's what got them in the end, was the little things that Alabama used to do so well that Nick Saban harps on all year long. They were able to escape them. And Michigan took away the one thing they had that they used, which was Jalen Milroe's improvisational skills. He was not able to make things up, and I think that was the difference in the game.
I'm with you on that. I feel like they were starting to wear on them, but it was so simple, the things that Alabama was messing up. I mean, just taking care of that fumble was so bad. I mean, and the snapping is it's repetitive. And it's been a problem all year. And it's like, how is this stuff not fixed? And I mean, maybe it's one of those deals, hey, the better coach team won, sure. But Alabama had them dead to rights, it felt like, later in that game. Because my thing is, I'm not a McCarthy guy. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. And all credit to him. That's a legacy drive. But their entire offense is we don't put our quarterback in that spot. We don't make him make those throws. And Harbaugh being this guy's the best quarterback in history of college football. Guy threw 1 touchdown pass last 5 weeks. So please don't give me that. It's interesting with them, but I guess, I know it's interesting. Maybe they're just like Georgia. Maybe they actually are. Maybe it is, whenever they're pressed, whenever the chips are down, this Michigan team is we have the answer. Maybe that's actually what it is. So maybe I'm wrong about this, the entire thing, but that's why I'm picking them to win the game. But I didn't, at least as far as the Rose Bowl went, I didn't come away being like, that's by far and away better than Bama. But I would pick Michigan, obviously, against Washington. It's going to be hard to repeat that performance Penix had and company had again. And also, they almost lost the game, even with that good performance. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Josh, always love having you on, buddy. We'll talk to you again next week.
See you guys.
All right, Josh Neighbors, Crystal Ball College Football Channel, host of the Big 12 Watch with us. And next,